I'll consider it. So it's not about 1 million. It's about 3 million in some people's eyes.
Okay. So, Nadine, 1 million is not enough. 3 million for one children, one newborn.
Well, I think Mr. Liang Jianzhang's suggestion, in my opinion, is I agree with Professor Li. I can't use the word bold to his suggestion. But in my opinion, because I'm a researcher on social policy and social security, in social policy and social security research, we usually talked about the policy. That is to say, in welfare state concept, the government not only gave people cash, but also gave them goods and services. So I think Mr. Liang Jianzhang's focus is on the cash nexus between government and the people. But in my opinion, what we need more is the goods and the services that the government can deliver. So that is, as we have mentioned, that schools, hospitals, housing are some kind of difficulties to prevent people to have more children. So I think government not only to give money to the people, but also to build more schools, build more hospitals, build more houses, and have good allocations. For example, some good hospitals and schools are focusing in Shanghai and Beijing, some cities. So we have to put it more evenly allocated all around the country. So I think not only cash, but also goods and services that the government are going to deliver to the people could help people to have more children.
Exactly. It's not just about money. It's about so much more. For example, to encourage more births, the Japanese government has introduced a series of measures over the years, which include the Angel Plan. It aims to achieve its goal by addressing a few related challenges. It's not just about money, but also about for example, improving the employment environment to reconcile work and family responsibilities. It also includes enhancing child care services and strengthening maternal and child health facilities. So all of those measures need to be implemented at the same time.
After all these economic incentives in Japan and Korea, their boosting policies and measures are failing, because they're not addressing some very key factors. For instance, in China, every year we see this disappearance of 5 million women of childbearing age. That's the primary reason. That's the number one reason. And aside from the second reason, meaning they can't afford, and the third reason, they don't want, then another factor, the culture factor, is all these East Asian countries are still emphasizing men in charge of outside family and women in charge of inside family. So they still, we see this gap between men's awareness of child-rearing burden and women's full consciousness of the burden of childbearing. So I think this gender gap has to be fully addressed before we can talk about having a second child or having a third child.
There is a view that women with a higher education, well-educated women, tend to have say delayed marriage, or fewer children, or even to the point of having no children at all. Is that a bias or is that the fact?
I think that's mostly a fact, especially in Tier 1 cities. Women are definitely postponing the age of having children, and some women decided not to have children at all. So if you want to ask me the reason behind that, of course, the financial reason is the top one factor. And also, just like Professor Lee said, that there's this gender gap, and also there's this traditional gender bias. People think that women should be staying at home taking care of children, but to a lot of well-educated women, realizing their own values in this world is also a top priority. So I would like to quote He Dan, member of the National Committee of CPPCC. She once proposed that single men in China need to learn to care about women and take on more domestic duties in order to boost marriage rate and birth rate. And I definitely agree with that. If I can find a man who is willing to share domestic duties with me and who respects my career decisions and who support my personal growth, I will definitely want to give baby to that man. But if a man does not respect a woman and requires me to stay at home to take care of the baby and sacrifice my personal development, that is definitely a no to me.
Mm-hmm. And Nadine, you are the man on the table. So you think how big a problem is that? To take care of the family business and let your partner or your wife to work independently or running a business?
Well, I think
We can take turns, right?
You can take a turn. Yes.
Matchmaking, yeah.
Can I add my 2 cents? I think this question is a trick because you're only asking about women's education, but not men's education. The problem of men's education is that it doesn't matter whether a man is educated or not. They, according to statistics, they prefer to have a second child, and more men, doesn't matter they are educated or not, more men, twice men as much as women, are believing that a family without child is not a complete one. So 80% men want to have, plan to have, or are interested in having a second child, as only compared to 53% of women. But women significantly agree that before they have a child, first child or second child, they should have a very clear decision on who is going to take up what part of the family chores. But only 38% of men are agreeing that before marriage, before childbirth, they should have very clear division of labor in the family. So, and I think the difference is more generational. So people born in the 90s and at the beginning of 2000s, they are more, especially women, they are less willing to have a second child or third child. Mm-hmm. So I think it's this gender gap in social values, in education, in re-education, that we should really work on that.
Okay, Nadine, seems we have found the problem. It's the man.
Well, I think...
you didn't say that. You
I'm a reasonable man.
Laura.
Definitely. I believe that. I think we really need to work on the new social values. We need to work on, for instance, in Scandinavian countries, a lot of men are proud to be the dad or to be the primary caregiver and caretaker.
House husband.
House husbands. But in Asian, particularly East Asian countries, it is still regarded as a kind of insult if men stay at home taking care of babies, and if women working outside. Of course, the situation is better in China as compared to Japan and Korea.
Mm-hmm. Nadine, finally.
To be in the.
Okay.
Sorry.
Can we have Nadine?
I just want to add.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course. Let the men speak.
Yeah, let the man speak.
The men have been speaking all the time, so I think this is the only program that women can speak.
Okay. So all right.
We have heard enough from men. We should hear more from women.
We should let Nadine to weigh in and see, what the man is thinking about helping the family, because their assistance is critical in the decision, in the family decision to have one more child.
Well, I think I'm a reasonable person. I don't speak on my own preferences or make some decisions or conclusions just on the situations of myself, because I can only represent the minority people's opinion, maybe not a majority. So I think what we are going to talk about must be on the basis of the statistics, of the analysis, of the real policies, or etc., etc. So I think my point of view is not important in the matter of fact. So I think from just the lady has mentioned that from the family's decisions point of view, we do have the trend that we are going to have a small number of family. For example, in the consensus of the national population, we now have a 2.62% average family. And that is the fact, because back in the 1950s, we have about 4.4% on average a family. So we have a smaller family scale and we have less and less children. That is the fact. And when we talk about whether it is a decision of the father, the mother, the man, the women. I don't think it matters, because right now in China, yes, I agree with the lady that in some countries, social policies or policies, there is a detailed distinction between the policies to women and policies to men. For example, in Britain, their children benefits system is allocated to the mother, not the father, because they make a survey that the father may not spend the money on the children. But I think in China, in our policy implementation and analysis, we do not have that gender factor into consideration. Maybe in the future, we are going to take more considerations about the gender analysis in our policies. But right now, we do not have the data. Mm-hmm. We do not have the policy, and we do not know whether the majority is men's opinion or women's opinion. So I think we do not have to linger on the personal opinion. We have to focus on the statistics. We have to focus on the majority's opinions. Well, we do not have the figure or number of the majority's opinions right now.
But Nadine, do you think a man's role in the family? Do you agree it is important, probably, in affecting the decision whether to have extra child or not?
Well, from my own perspective and from my friends, colleagues, or classmates, I don't think it is only the man's decision. It is the decision of the couple. Man and women are taking decisions together, in my opinion.
Okay.
Especially in my family, I can't make a decision to have more children without the consent of my wife.
That's for sure. And Flora, obviously, according to Nadine, it's a joint decision. The wife and the husband make a decision for the future of the family.
But I said I only represent the minority of the people. Maybe to some kind of people in rural areas, in other areas, maybe the man is dominant in the family decision. That maybe. Mm-hmm. We can use the word maybe.
Okay. If that's the case, I mean, a man's role obviously is important. What can we do to raise awareness, to encourage men to stay at home? It's all right to stay at home and take care of the children.
I don't think we need to necessarily encourage men to stay at home, because it's also not fair. I think we just need to be more open-minded to the idea whoever wants to stay at home to take care of the children can have the permission to stay at home with no guilt and stigma at all. Whether it's men or women or the grandparents or, a nanny, it can be anyone. And I do think in order to raise a healthy and mentally stable child, men and women need to work together. They need to give the child equal attention and spend quality time with the child as often as possible. And I would like to share a new perspective of family education. Being in the education industry luckily gives me a lens to the family education of the post-2000s generation. Now I realize that families with boys have started to value the importance of the emotional quotient as much as intelligence. More and more parents view high school puppy love as a good practice for their sons to develop emotional maturity rather than a waste of time. I think this is quite a good preparation for their sons' happy marriage in the future. And probably in the next generation, we can see women are more willing to have children because the men in the future are more respectful to women and are willing to shoulder more domestic duties.
And more supportive. Professor Lee.
More emotional support.
Yeah, can we draw a conclusion more or less, let's say, it's not only about economic incentives. It's also about a social transformation, about roles, men, women in the family, etc.
Yes, I think we really have to learn hard from Japan and Korea, and we have to reflect on why their policies of childbirth boosting are not really reaching their desired goals. We really have to contemplate more. How come the women are disappearing in this discussion of child rearing and the birth rate? And we really have to address the gender issue, and we really have to re-educate our men and women in terms of family roles and also in terms of quality child rearing and childbirth.
With that, we come to the end of today's discussion. Many thanks to our guests. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thanks for being with us.
我爱你, I love you. 我爱你. This might be the easiest way to say I love you, since there are so many other romantic expressions. No matter if you're a rookie
你好，我的中文语言讲
or a sophisticated learner,
我来北京5年了，我是本地人。
there is definitely something that will interest you. Check out Takeaway Chinese, a word that starts with 你好.
You're listening to CGTN Radio. Hear the difference. Experience the musical classics of the East. Mingle with the masters of Chinese music.
的这种美，召唤了女性。
因为蒙古民族被称为
小小二胡 Music Talks. Witness the sound of antiquity and modernity. This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.
Now the news. I'm Zhao Hongyu. Search and rescue operations are ongoing in Sichuan after 6.8 magnitude earthquake jolted the province Monday. The quake that hit Luding County has left around 50 people dead and 16 others missing. The quake has damaged roads, telecom infrastructure, and power supply facilities. Damages widespread are making search and rescue operations more difficult. Zheng Songwu reports.
The magnitude 6.8 earthquake that hit Luding County triggered landslides, and many rescue devices were blocked as workers headed to the epicenter. As of 6 p.m. on Monday night, 6,500 rescue workers, such as firefighters and soldiers, have been sent to carry out a rescue mission. 4 helicopters and 2 drones were also being used in the operation. 3,400 shelter tents have also been set up, and more than 50,000 people were evacuated from the earthquake site.
China has earmarked 50 million yuan, more than $7 million from its Central Natural Disaster Relief Funds to support rescue and relief work following a 6.8 magnitude earthquake in Sichuan province. Relief supplies, including some 3,000 tents and 10,000 folding beds, have been allocated to Luding County, where the epicenter was located. The Ministry of Emergency Management has sent more than 1,100 rescue team personnel to the site. More than 3,000 rescuers from neighboring regions are on standby. Ukraine says the last operating reactor at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been disconnected from the grid. Urgent efforts are underway to restore it, and Ukraine and Russia blame each other for renewed artillery attacks in the plant. Sergei Ramos has more.
The last remaining reactor at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has been disconnected from the power grid. This is according to Ukraine's state energy company, an update from the International Atomic Energy Agency. The 6th reactor had been connected with the last remaining reserve power line. Russia says that Ukraine has been shelling the plant. Ukraine says that Russia is shelling the plant. President Volodymyr Zelensky in his address saying that Russia has once again brought Europe to the brink of nuclear disaster. We know from a statement from the IAEA, they say this reactor will be reconnected to the grid once the power line is switched on again.
China's central bank says it'll cut the foreign exchange reserve requirement ratio for financial institutions by 2 percentage points from September 15th. The reserve requirement ratio now stands at 6%, down from 8%. The 2022 China International Fair for Trade in Services has wrapped up in Beijing. Authorities say this year's fair has demonstrated China's determination to open wider to the global market. Zhang Tao has more.
The 6-day event was held in the backdrop of sluggish world economy, but the scale of the event is expanded compared to last year. Figures show over 10,000 enterprises have participated in the fair. Meanwhile, the number of international exhibitors increased by 13 compared with the previous year. Green innovation is a major highlight of this year's fair. During the 6-day event, organizers have held over 20 forums on global cooperation on green development. The fair also for the first time set up a metaverse exhibition hall, providing visitors immersive experience empowered by the latest technologies.
UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has won the ruling Conservative Party's leadership contest and will replace Boris Johnson as the country's new Prime Minister. In a runoff, Truss beat former Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak by winning 57.4% of the Conservative Party members' vote. Voting began in early August, a month after Johnson was forced to step down following an avalanche of ministerial resignations over his scandal-plagued leadership. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies have announced small production cuts for October to bolster oil prices that have recently slid over recession fears. The Oil Alliance decided to cut production by 100,000 barrels per day in October from its September level. China Media Group has officially signed an agreement with the Olympic Broadcasting Service on broadcast coverage of the 2024 Paris Olympics. CMG will take on the production of 4 sports: badminton, gymnastics, sports climbing, and table tennis. And that's the news. I'm Do Hong.
Daily news and analysis. We keep you informed and inspired.
This is World Today.
Germany announces its 65 billion euro economic relief package to tackle inflation in the country. U.S. life expectancy has fallen for a consecutive year to an average of 76 years old. Bloomberg projects India to overtake the United Kingdom and become the world's 5th largest economy. You're listening to World Today, a news program with a different perspective. I'm Liu Kun in Beijing. To listen to this episode again or to catch up on previous episodes, download our podcast by searching World Today. The 2022 China International Fair for Trade in Services closes on Monday. As the largest comprehensive fair for trade in services in China and across the world, the exhibition this year has attracted over 2,400 enterprises from more than 70 countries, regions, and international organizations. Fortune 500 companies make up about 21% of the offline exhibitors. So what benefits does this open platform offer enterprises, and why are foreign investors overwhelmingly optimistic about the Chinese market? For answers to these questions and more, our reporter Xu Yawen earlier spoke to Fu Chenggang, participant of this year's CIFTIS and president at China Federation of International Financial Centers and International Innovation Centers.
Mr. Fu, we know at this year's CIFTIS, you attended 3 international forums, including China-Europe Innovation Investment Conference, China Gulf Innovation Investment Conference, as well as Global Sovereign Wealth Fund Forum. These 3 forums cover a wide range of topics, from digital finance to wealth management and development of international financial center. So what's your main takeaway from these forums?
Well, thank you so much, Yawen. It's my great pleasure to have your interview today with the CIFTIS forums. As you mentioned, the takeaway actually is personally it's my 4th year to attend the CIFTIS. I think that I have 3 takeaways, actually also benefits we got from this year. First one is it gave us, not only me, but including all my partners, all the organizations who send their speakers, all of us. It's a great opportunity for us to learn better, learn more about the region, about China in economic development and in the social development. More importantly, to how to get away of the uncertainty of the world economy in joint efforts. The second takeaway is we do have great opportunities, no matter on-site or online, to work with our Chinese partners, of course, including me. All our global speakers and behind them, the multinational corporations, professional associations, international organizations, all of them can have a real good reconnection through the CIFTIS online or on-site. And then that will be very helpful to them to expand their business in the long run in the future, which means that make the better decision making on how to invest China and how to benefit from the long-term development of China. Another very important point is how they attract the Chinese leading investors, companies, and government platforms to invest in their regions, in their countries. Is a great platform opportunity for us. The third one is because we do organize 3 forums with different topics. In each topic, we focus not only on the sovereign wealth fund management, the allocation strategy, how to invest China, how to invest in emerging markets, and how to balance the allocation of different markets to see how we develop our business better, but also exchange our thinking, which will be better facilitating our future work in those kind of fields.
Indeed, that's a lot of fruitful takeaways from the forums. We have noticed last year, the Invesco Sovereign Wealth Fund report says 98% of sovereign wealth funds will continue to invest in China. As an economist, what's your observation on the factors behind the